that you need to have a broad-based reading diet. Abraham Kuyper famously stated in his inaugural address at the opening of the Free University of Amsterdam, "There's not a square inch of the whole domain of our human existence over which Christ, who is sovereign over all, does not cry, 'Mine.'" Now, so often among neo-Calvinists, that one statement has been used as their battle cry to, take over the world, to transform culture. But that's not what Kuyper says. That quote is not about transforming culture. He's saying that Christ is sovereign over the world. And if there's not a single square inch of it over which Christ cannot say, "Mine," then that means that every square inch of it is invested with divine glory and wisdom. Every square inch belongs to Christ. And so this means that we have to study the creation. Kuyper similarly noted, essentially in another venue, that in the church's battle with liberalism, that liberals rejected the scriptures as being authoritative, whereas conservatives withdrew from nature because that was where the liberals were and retreated to the castle of scripture. But Kuyper rightly believed that we need to hold the two together. He says, quote, "Special revelation is not conceivable without the hypothesis of natural theology, is simply because grace never creates one single new reality." And so this means we need to study both Scripture and the world. Bavinck makes a similar observation when he commends the importance of natural theology. He says, in his Reformed Dogmatics, he says, quote, "There is not an atom in the universe in which God's everlasting power and deity are not clearly seen, both from within and from without. God's witness speaks to us. God does not leave himself without a witness, either in nature or in history," he says, "in heart or conscience, in life or lot. This witness of God is so powerful accordingly that almost no one denies its reality. All humans and peoples have heard something of the voice of the Lord. The consent of all peoples is confirmation of the fact that God does not leave himself without a witness. It is humanity's response to the voice of God." And so Bavinck casts a net over the entire creation. And it's a grand classroom where God unfolds his everlasting power and divinity. So in addition to the Bible, you need to study a wide array of subjects, including economics, science, literature, poetry, music, architecture, history, and art. Even in a fallen world, these different disciplines can give us vistas upon the truth that we might not otherwise get, even from the Bible. Alan Jacobs writes that charitable readers do not calculate the likelihood of reward for their loving attention, but their commitment to hope is a kind of calculation, a wager on the graciousness of God and on the image of God present in the writers of books. So we can apply this hope to all image bearers and their labors, even though they are fallen, because we're not so much looking at their work as much as we are looking at God's work in them. So to this end, studying other subjects outside of theology has at least two benefits. First, I think if you become too focused upon your own discipline, you lose sight of the bigger picture. And you lose sight of truths that can cross-pollinate your thought and your theology. When fighter pilot turned military strategist Colonel John Boyd reinvented himself in his 50s, note he did this in his 50s, he read books on philosophy, physics, math, economics, science, and a half a dozen other disciplines. He was seeking to understand the meta-philosophy, in other words, the philosophy behind the philosophy, the patterns behind the patterns. And so Colonel Boyd used, for example, insights from physics that he learned, such as Werner Heisenberg's uncertainty principle, where he says that the very process of observation brings changes to the things that are observed, i.e., you can have a group of people, point a camera at them, and all of a sudden they start acting differently because they know they're being observed. They say, "Hi, Mom," they act like idiots, they wave, they smile, they hide themselves for whatever reason. So studying physics helped him to learn truth that he could apply to other disciplines. Similarly, there are often other philosophical trends that transcend theology. You should ask yourself, why is it that theologian Albrecht Ritschl wanted to dispense with metaphysics from theology, but so did physicist Ernest Mach? that he wanted to dispense metaphysics out of physics. If two people, a physicist and a theologian, are both trying to push out metaphysics, there's something bigger than theology that's going on, something that is a meta-philosophy, if you will, that's influencing both disciplines. And you might never pick that up unless you go and you read outside of your discipline. You'll miss those kind of connections. So you need to study other disciplines so that you can cross-pollinate your thought.